Hey everyone, Blair Ballin with Living North Phoenix and the Living North Phoenix podcast. Welcome back to our podcast and a very special edition and new version of the podcast. In the past, it's been me talking about Living North Phoenix events and all that kind of stuff, and it's always been awesome. But recently realized I kind of need a different direction and excited to announce that each month moving forward, we're going to have a different quote unquote theme. And this month, due to some different posts that were in the group and discussions that I had, I thought Fitness February would be the perfect one to have. And February is my birthday month, which means nothing other than it's my birthday month. So, time to get back in shape. So, excited to have our first guest as part of our series, Amy Stevens, also known as Yoga Amy. And we're excited to have her on the podcast and as our first guest for the month to talk about the different things that she lets the community know about fitness. So, Amy, thanks for being here.
Thank you, Blair.
Yeah.
Well, it's 27 years being Yoga Amy, and the nickname just kind of stuck. And so that's the direction I took for my business. And 27 years, it's hard to believe that it's been that amount of time. I'm not going to say it's been a long time, but it's that amount of time. And it's been a lot of fun. I got into doing yoga as just a way of stress relief. And I had an incredibly stressful job straight out of college as an interior designer doing healthcare design and I was one of those people who was laughing hysterically during class because I was releasing all of this stored up energy that I didn't know about, didn't understand, and it's just amazing what our body can do. So 27 years later, I have a wealth of knowledge under my belt and it's
Yeah.
been a lot of fun.
So I'm not overly familiar with yoga. Like my wife does it. I've done like one or two classes of hot yoga. How many different types of yoga are there? What's your specialty if there is one? Walk us through that.
Sure. So there's a lot of different styles because the Western culture likes to adapt everything. The idea of hot yoga, there's the Bikram style of hot yoga where there's a set class of poses. So it's the same thing every single time you go in, and it is a heated room. I have taught hot vinyasa flow in the past, and I am of the mindset I don't want the mind to be able to predict what's coming next.
Hmm.
Because it's important that our brain works differently, that it's not just the set thing over and over and over because then you disconnect from the actual process of hearing. And that's a lot, I think, of what happens in our world these days is that people disconnect from having conversations. It's all done digitally. So, from the perspective of different styles, my background is more of called hatha yoga. So, it's just the balance of heating and cooling poses. And it's a more traditional. It is from India. And from the perspective of how I teach, it's a lot of my clients through the years have said, first of all, that my voice, if they could take me home. So think about before the day and age of Zoom, if they could take me home and put them to sleep, that was always a great compliment. At first, I wasn't quite sure if that was a good thing. But then as I got older, I was like, oh, yeah, that does make sense. Okay. I think a lot of people, their brains just can't turn off. And having that downtime, being able to listen to their body and being able to just have an experience instead of numbing out.
Yeah, for sure. You touched on a couple points there. One that I wanted to bring up, and I'm guessing this isn't in exact alignment with what you said, but and I don't remember which book it was, whether it was a book by Jim Quick or Jim Clear, Atomic Habits, or a different one, where he talked about as humans get so and it was talking about brain health and the idea that like this morning, I take my daughter to school and then I come to work and it's the same turns on the same roads always. And why not switch it up one time or many times or however often to just give your brain a different chance to think about something different I mean, repetition is important. So we remember something, we grow, all that stuff. But at the same time, for brain health, which again, I realize this isn't what you were talking about, but um, getting the brain involved to do those things is so important.
Yes, it is. And one of the things in my personal training practice, I don't turn on my camera. I make them just listen to me. And for some people, it's like, nope, I can't do this. And for others, like, oh, you're really making me get into my body and understand what I'm supposed to be doing. And that's what's been great about working with clients via Zoom. Um, the whole process of brain and the understanding, because I have worked with clients who've had strokes, and it's been interesting observing how as they're coming back, and they're capable again. They can walk, they can do things, they can move. It may be slower that they're moving, but they can still have that experience. So getting their brain to activate in a different way is so important. And the process behind yoga, it's about the mind-body connection. So if you are one who has anxiety and just too much in the world, then that's something that is helpful. The process of listening to your breath, the process of feeling just very gentle movements. I've kind of moved away from the harder practices at this point in my life. So I prefer more of like a yen style or restorative style of yoga and doing things more one-to-one with clients because then they get the bigger experience instead of like a classroom format in that way.
Awesome. So, question, and this is a selfish question, maybe it'll apply to other people. Um, since early on in my life, I don't want to say I have ADD or whatever because I haven't been tested for it. I don't know, and I'm not uh, lessening anyone that does. I just don't know. But I have a very hard time sitting still. And, as you brought up, and many of us know, or I've got this always by me, whether I'm sleeping or whatever. And there you go. Um, so the ability to sit still without thinking about other stuff, being able to just be, for someone like that, in this case me, who's resisted doing something like yoga consistently, what would you say to that?
So in my one-to-one practices, I have a gentleman I work with and he is ADHD and it is very evident when his brain clicks off from what I'm saying to him thinking about something else. And I call him out on it. I'm like, "So, what was important that switched you from doing what you're doing to thinking forward?" And it's really interesting because when I call him out on that, it actually gets him back into his body and he appreciates it. I'm not being rude
Yeah.
by doing that. It's just something that when you have kind of that mentality, it's easy to jump ahead. It's easier to not be connected to body. And when we are in a state of discomfort. So, for some people, lifting weights is a state of discomfort. So, why would they want to do that? Cardio can be a state of discomfort. Why do you want to do that? But when you start thinking about, so how many people do you see at a gym listening to something or watching one of the TVs in front of them? They are disconnecting from what they're actually doing. They're not observing. I'm walking, I'm running, I'm lifting weights. It's a very easy way. It's how we've been trained in the Western culture to do things. So that multitasking feature. But from the perspective of just giving yourself permission that when a thought does come up, what's it about? Like, is it dealing with something that you're feeling internally? Or is it more in regards to just wanting to blank out on the process of what's going on and just enjoying something else while you kind of trudge through whatever the workout may be.
Hmm, awesome. So a lot of that, what I'm hearing is also just be present for what you're doing.
Yeah, and it's true when we eat. I had lunch with a girlfriend who's a school teacher, and she's been retired for at least 15 years. And I was like, girl, I cannot keep up with you. You are scarfing your lunch down like it is, like you have 5 minutes. And she's like, well, that's how I've been trained since I was in my 20s out of college doing my first teaching job. I said, yeah, but you're retired now. Stop, like, slow down, eat your meal, enjoy what you're tasting. It's just, you're like, I can't keep up and it's making me feel nauseous.
Right. Okay. So I know you mentioned this earlier, and I was going to ask you. So you do obviously you do yoga, but you do it via Zoom. Do you also do it in person?
I don't teach in person anymore because of my crazy work schedule. It really is helpful for me, and I am finding that all of my clients who work with me love it. They don't have to get up, they don't have to, drive X amount of miles to get to a place. If they don't even want to take a shower, that's fine too. I do say that they need to be dressed, so there I am trying a line there. So, from the perspective of hosting this way, I have a client who lives in Singapore, part-time, and then they're here in the area, the other part-time. So it's really great. It gives flexibility, and if anybody's traveling in their time frame, they don't have to give up their workouts while they're traveling.
Yeah. And then is it always individual, some group also, a mix?
So I do have a mix. I have a couple of group classes. One's a 15-minute corporate class that I offer twice a week. So 15 minutes at 1 o'clock, Arizona time, which is fabulous because they're coming right off of lunch. Some people don't like that, depending on how big of a lunch they have. But I'm not doing like really massive amounts of things with them. It's more of an administrative group, but it is a construction company. So some of the guys are out in the field, others are in the office. And so I try to work a combination of things based on what they do. And then, so that's available. It's also on my website for that schedule because it is open to others. And then I also offer a gentle yoga class on Monday nights, and this has always been my favorite style of yoga because, well, when I did it in person in a yoga studio and at gyms and that kind of thing, when somebody snores, that's actually the biggest compliment I think I can ever have because it doesn't happen very often. So when I hear a snore come out of somebody, it's like, oh, yay.
That's funny. Okay. And so what would you say? So with me calling this Fitness February, what would you say outside of yoga, um, you personally try to pay attention to most to make sure you're as fit as possible that you want to be? What does that look like? Whether it's nutrition, exercise, whatever.
Yeah. So one of the things that when a woman gets to a certain age, there's this thing about perimenopause and going through the menopause concept and the changes that your body takes. The biggest thing that I have learned is to be gentle with myself. It's not how it used to be. And it doesn't matter sometimes what I do, but I am more alert to um, how I feel because there are certain things that a lot of conversations may be taboo or not being taken place about perimenopause in particular. Um, the That's a whole other conversation that I'm not sure you want to have right now. But I am participating in a menopause conference coming up later this month. So that's something I'll have on my website as well. But from the perspective of just being gentle with yourself as your body changes, as your hormones change, and that's true for men too. As hormones change, you just have to be understanding that, hey, I'm not 20 anymore. Like, okay. So what does a walk look like? What does a hike look like? If you're hiking, do you need to have walking sticks to help you feel more secure while you're out, especially if you're doing it by yourself? If you are hiking by yourself, I would highly encourage to make sure that you have some kind of tracking system. We've been hearing more and more about that on TV as well with any of the hikers in the last few years who have not had a tracking system on their phone. So if they've gotten lost, if they've gone off track, it can be a scary situation. The amount of water that you're drinking. One thing in the summer months for us, it's really important to stay hydrated. And this may sound rude, but here you go. Um, my design career, I had to design around urine. And so as I've gotten into my yoga career as well, it's like, hey, look in the toilet. If your urine is clear, that's fantastic. If it is brown, you are in trouble. You are dehydrated and you are in trouble. So, being alert to what your body is doing. Again, it's this whole understanding of the mind-body connection. And if you start dismissing any symptoms that you have, that's not good for you ultimately in the long run.
Right. Right.
So, one thing I also wanted to mention to you, so that 15-minute corporate class, we're gonna do a little playing right now, okay? Blair, you good with this?
I'm good.
I asked you beforehand if you had like a belt or if you had like a broomstick. So you found something. So let's use our tools.
Okay.
So oftentimes, if you're seated at your desk, you know, your shoulders drop forward, you're feeling tired, you just kind of sink into it, right? So what we're going to do, so I have an actual yoga belt, but you can use a belt from your closet. You can use something else. And what I want you to do is we're going to take the hands wider than the shoulders and go straight up overhead. All right. So for some people, this in and of itself is too much. But for others, they're kind of like, oh, well, I don't really feel too much. So let me show you from a side profile. So if you're here, this is showing me that your shoulders are so darn tight that you can't do much of anything, right? So your posture is going to be rounded. Now, as you lift your collarbones up and your arms are still straight, try to bring that prop up over your head without pushing your chin forward. We don't want to be like a turtle pushing out of our shell, so let the back of your head slide behind. Now, for some, this is plenty. Like arms start to shake, you might feel even tingling in your hands. It's because your body is like, what is going on right now? Because when do you ever do this, right? Unless if you're working out with somebody. Now, I have to laugh that you're doing this in February. So, in all of my years teaching, January, February, pretty busy at the gym. By the end of February, oh, life starts getting busy. March, oh, I just don't want, my life is just too busy. April, crickets at the gym. Then it picks up a little bit in the summer months here in Arizona because it's hot outside.
Mhm.
All right, play with me a little more.
Okay.
Try to go back. Sometimes your shoulders will pop. You may feel that. And as you drop your arms back, we want to keep the arms straight. Now, one thing, if it's too much, take your hands wider. It's okay to take your hands wider. So if you're a golfer, grab your golf club and do this before you play. This is really great. One of my clients is an avid golfer, so I've been teaching him things to do, and he has his whole system now before he goes out to hit the ball. All right, so just pump the arms back and forth. Try not to push the chin forward. And you're going to start to notice that the hands can go behind you more. All right, go ahead, put that down. How do you feel?
Well, it's because I've been so out of shape. I mean, I was definitely starting to feel some shaking. So, I mean, I feel good by doing it though. So, and it's true. Like it's such a small thing that has such a big impact because, many of us do work at a computer and just sitting there without any movement is not good at all. That was really good.
Good. Okay, I got one more for you.
Okay.
Put your hands flat together. Let your fingers spread a little bit. And now I've got my hands up a little higher. Here, let me turn out. Tip your fingers towards your chin and lift your elbows up. Now, here's what I want to point out. You just adjusted yourself. So if the hands start to separate, don't tip your fingers as far towards your chin. But this helps with wrists. Now point forward. This help with wrists, with forearms. Try to drop your shoulders a little bit. Yeah.
Huh.
And just notice the flexibility that you can create. So for those that are texters with their thumbs or gamers, these guys struggle with sometimes moving. And so understanding that even this, where you've got everything touching, but a bit of a spread as well, you can start to feel that mobility taking place
Hmm.
into the wrists and forearms.
So if certain areas are tighter than others, those are the ones that are being moved more or that need more work to them. So like when I was doing this, my arms and shoulders are super tight.
So you're not using them as much.
Hmm.
So when there's a lot of tightness, and again, posture, I saw a gentleman going into the grocery store who was so bent over. He was probably in his 80s. He was so bent over that literally it was almost like a 90-degree angle. And it just pained me because if he had the proper tools when he was younger to be able to be more active, even like awareness of standing upright, he would be in a much different space in his later part of life.
Yeah, our daughter, and I mean m many kids these days, and adults for that matter, like I see her at the dinner table, and it's basically like this.
Yep.
I mean, I'm not saying my posture is great, but also, like the neck just starting to go like this, and it concerns me that, future generations or today's youngest generation, because of all the phone and texting and all that stuff, like, and I don't, this is going to sound bad, but starting to look like, whether it's monkeys again, that just like whatever. And it really concerns me because I've had back problems and I see her posture. Again, I know my posture isn't great, but I do try to do the occasional this, whatever. Like it really concerns me.
Do you have a foam roller?
At home, I do, yes.
Yes, most people do, and it's stored away somewhere, collecting dust. So if it's one of the longer foam rollers, lay down on it the length of your spine. So your head is supported all the way down to your buttocks, and then just lay down on it. So your shoulders drop, your arms drop, your butt's elevated, your back is elevated, your head is supported, and then just keep your knees bent. So that slight bit of support under the full length of your torso, your shoulders will have the capability of dropping down, which then starts to open this, which also helps with your lungs. Oftentimes in our winter months, if we have people coming in from out of state and bringing us their wonderful cooties, um, we get into that whole situation with kids who get sick from school. Um, the whole thing about getting your lungs to open and receive a deeper breath is very, very important as well, especially in our winter months.
Hmm. So I just got a reminder that we've got about 10 minutes left. So you brought up something there, and my massage therapist has told me this before, and I never understood it. So assume this is the foam roller, and obviously this isn't to scale, but I get really confused with this stuff, and assume this is me. So then I'm lying, and the foam roller's like this. So I'm lying on it like this then?
Yes, yes. So, and then your feet will be on the floor, your knees will be bent, and then your whole entire back, your butt, your back, your head are all on the foam roller.
Huh. Okay.
Now, there are some foam rollers that are only like a foot long. You
Right.
obviously won't use that. You want to use the ones that are at least 36 inches long. And so it just honestly, that in and of itself has helped tremendously for so many of my clients. Because everybody buys a foam roller and then they hate it because it's not forgiving. Like it does not um, have softness to it like a mattress does. And so
I
when they have it and then they store it away in their closet, it's like, oh, let's pull that out and let's use that a little bit. So,
Yeah, I love my foam roller. I get a lot of tightness towards the top of my or bottom of my neck, top of my shoulders, and upper back, and then my sides of my legs. And rolling on it just will almost instantaneously get rid of whatever knots are there. So yeah, if anyone's listening and you don't have a foam roller, highly suggest you get it. Um, so as we start to, unfortunately, don't have more time. As we start to wrap up, how can people find you and get a hold of you to inquire about classes or whatever's next?
yeah, my website is the best way to get a hold of me. It's yogaamy.net. YOGAAMY.net. Everything's on there, even some pre-recorded classes that I have. And I love working with people privately. So if anybody has any questions, feels like, I just don't feel like I want to go to a gym and do things on my own, I'm more than happy to even just have a conversation with you about what your goals are.
Awesome. Yeah, and as someone, so obviously I run the Living North Phoenix group, and there's however many people in there, but regardless of that, with where we are as meaning Phoenix. I think it's even more important that people look at something like yoga, that's so important to get more connected to to themselves, because the thought is, at least my thought is, summer hits and then it's too hot, so we're not going to do anything outside. So then what can we do inside? And there's plenty to do outside or inside, and yoga is definitely one of those things. I know I don't do it. My wife, like I said, does. And I'm hoping whoever listens to this reaches out or asks questions or whatever to just give themselves a better chance of making sure they're as fit as possible.
Yeah, and keep in mind the whole philosophy of yoga, because again, I've been doing this for 27 years. I moved here from St. Louis. I had the first yoga studio in St. Louis, in my county that I lived in. It's not a religious aspect. So please know that I'm not here to teach you a religion. I'm here to allow you to feel better. I'm here to give you tips and pointers to make your life easier as you get older and not apply pressure into the body and feel discomfort. I work with where you are that day and we progress from there.
That really comes up as a concern, that they're concerned it's relating to oh boy.
And I'm getting it all over again. Like 27 years ago in Missouri, that was one thing, but I'm getting it here again.
That's sad. Wow. Anyway, okay. Well, did you want to cover anything else or bring up anything else?
No, I want you to use that stick and do your arm stretches every day and think about it like when and taking this is the other big thing. This is the other big thing. So your water bottle, you should be drinking that within an hour, that entire thing
Okay.
within an hour.
Yep.
Get up within that hour, hour and a half, use the restroom, refill it. Don't top it off because that's what a lot of people do. Oh, well, I've had 2 inches of water, so let me go top this off and then no, empty the entire thing.
Right.
And I don't mean in the sink, empty it into yourself. Then refill it. And yes, you're going to be getting up and peeing a lot throughout the day at this point, but prepare yourself much better for summer. Get yourself into the routine of drinking more water. I am always amazed at how much um, that people don't drink water.
Yeah, it's pretty crazy. Well, this has been awesome. I appreciate you connecting via the group, and to do this as our first part of the series. It was very informative for me. So I'm hoping everyone else gets some nugget to take to their lives to be able to be more fit. Yoga obviously is very impactful and can be very impactful. So I appreciate you being on.
Absolutely. Thank you, Blair. Have a good one.
You too. Thanks again. Have an awesome day.